that sits in here. Okay. But that's a different story. That doesn't apply to this
We
one.
found that, you know, for the most part, they work and both of our kids really good. students. Yeah, that's
Steven?
united.
That sits in here. Okay. But that's a different story. That doesn't apply to this
We
one.
found that, you know, for the most part, they work and both of our kids work every- It's united.
That sits in here.
Welcome, Stephen.
Okay. But that's a different story. That doesn't apply to this
We
one.
found that, you know, for the most part, they work and both of our kids work every- It's united.
That sits in here.
Welcome, Stephen.
Okay. But that's a different story. That doesn't apply to this
We
one.
found that, you know, for the most part, they work and both of our kids work every- It's united.
That sits in here.
Welcome, Stephen.
Okay. But that's a different story. That doesn't apply to this
We
one.
found that, you know, for the most part, they work and both of our kids work every- It's united.
That sits in here.
Welcome, Stephen.
Okay. But that's a different story. That doesn't apply to this
We
one.
found that, you know, for the most part, they work and both of our kids work every- It's united.
Also our IT guy. This is a small town.
What are we trying to do now? What are we trying to do? Okay, I just muted the YouTube video.
Yeah.
Which means that it's not gonna reverberate through the,
Right.
but
Yeah.
hypothetically, it's still producing out to the public. We only need now, get back into Zoom.
Yeah, it's out of there or something like that.
It's not going to,
That's going to, to admit all these people.
Yeah.
You come to, there'll be a package, what we're gonna believe we're. So you can find it. Yeah, you know that. Okay. I didn't know what you know, and what you don't know. I actually just got it. Yeah, I wrote it. Legalized them a little bit. I didn't share it.
If someone on YouTube can't,
I like the overall policy of doing something proactive.
we invite.
Back is?
Yeah.
Back's here?
Yeah.
and pin him to the top too, if you want to.
Sounds great.
You're gonna see it.
Matt, can
Blown
you
up.
hear us, Matt? Wave if you can. Okay.
Everything working and we're ready?
Speak through.
Okay, then. All set, Sharon?
I believe so. I'm just letting, it looks like two more people are trying to come.
Robert Mack can vote. Since we have a quorum here
Yes.
anyway, he can vote and it will count.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
As long as you have a quorum in person.
excuse me?
As long as you have a quorum in person.
That's what I thought. Okay, we think we're ready. All right, well, welcome everyone to the Rush Planning Board meeting of December 19, 2023. I'll make introductions in a bit, but we will start with the roll call. That'll be like introductions, but Sharon, if you would do the honors to establish our quorum.
Deputy Chair Mac Morse.
Here.
Chairman Scott Struck.
Here.
Member Paul Gordon.
Here.
Member Stephen Wisnowski.
Here.
And Deputy Chair.
Here. Okay.
We did have a legal notice. It says that the legal notice change of meeting date, the scheduled Town of Rush Planning Board meeting date has been changed from December 26th to December 19th, 2023.
Okay, thank you. So you did hear the roll call. However, let me go through it. So we have a brand new member here today who is Stephen Wisnowski over here. Stephen was appointed by the town board just about 2 weeks ago, perhaps, to fill the position vacated by John Morelli. So Stephen's term lasts until the end of 2025, I believe. So he has 2 years if he fulfills that. So Stephen, this is Paul Corbin, myself, who we met, Deputy Carl Ast. Mac Moise is on, member Moise is on Zoom because he's not feeling well today, and I appreciate you at least tuning in on Zoom, Mac. Appreciate that. At the table, we have Matthew Sousa, who was our town engineer representative from MRB, and Robert Marks, who was our town attorney from Boylan Code. And in the front row in the audience is Jean Morelli, our liaison to the town board, and of course our clerk Sharon Knight. We're a bit behind in some things tonight because Sharon had a family emergency, was in Virginia for a few days. Not a good situation, but I think we're prepared and can do what we need to tonight. Okay. We are not going to approve minutes because that was one of the things that kind of got delayed. We'll come back to that in January and hopefully approve 2 meetings worth of minutes in January. With that, I think we're ready to move on to the public hearing. So Sharon, if you can read the notice.
Legal notice of public hearing, Town of Rush Planning Board. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the provisions of the Town of Rush and 274A and 274B of the town law, a public hearing will be held by the planning board of the Town of Rush at the Town of Rush Town Hall, 5977 East Henrietta Road, Rush, New York, 14543 on December 19th, 2023 at 7:05 p.m. to hear all persons interested in the following application. Application 2023-12B by Emily and Nicholas Bennett for the site plan approval for a new home. The parcel is located at 301 Keyes Road, Honeoye Falls, New York, 14472, with a tax parcel ID 220.02-1-24.1 and is zoned R30 residential. The public may also access the meeting via Zoom video conference. Instruction on accessing the virtual meeting are available on the town website at www.townofrush.com, dated November 30th, 2023, by order of the Rush Planning Board, Sharon M. Knight, MMC, RMC, Planning Board Clerk.
Okay, thank you. Just one little minor bit of information. I think there's an error on the agenda, which has an incorrect parcel number. It's 220.02-1, and the agenda says 4. But the application is correct where it needs to be. Okay, Bennett, are you prepared to discuss what you're trying to do? If you'd like to come up here and you can go to the podium if you'd like to, or you can sit in the front, whatever you'd like to do.
Chair.
Pull up a chair. That's great.
Yeah, so my name is Nick Benner. This is my wife, Emily. Yeah, we're proposing a single family residential home, 301 Keyes Road. So I think we've submitted everything required here on the application. Got the site plans. I did see that the comment letter come through from MRB.
Right.
They did the review on it. I did send in a response letter. I don't know if that.
We haven't seen it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can see it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll probably end up going over that
Yeah.
in this public hearing. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, other than that. Any questions or comments?
Okay. So you're, obviously your engineer is not here tonight. You're representing yourself. Okay. Guys got plans out. I'll pull mine out. I'll try to fit it all on the table. Just like a night. The problem is I write my own notes on my own plans. That's the problem. Well, the way this typically progresses, we'll start asking you questions. And we'll cycle back and read into the record all of the input that we have from the various agencies, including our town engineer. Well, maybe I'll let you do your own, Matthew. But we'll get all the information in there.
Yep.
So, anybody want to start?
Can we give them a microphone? I think that.
Thank you, Gene.
You want to just move it? Is that all right?
I'll get you another chair.
Do we have okay,
I mean, we could throw it right here if you want. Thank you.
first of all, generally the plans were done pretty well. I mean, believe it or not, some people try to do it themselves, which is impossible. So we end up sending them back typically.
Yep.
So it's generally well done. There are a few questions, I think, around
Sure,
the
sure.
wetlands and the stream and the barn, but we'll get to all of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the wetlands, there is no wetlands on site. I'm not sure where that, I have some actual mapping here, federal and state wetlands. I can actually provide those to you. And that shows all the wetlands, the 100-foot buffer zones and for state and federal. And we're well outside of those limits.
Is that fair, Matthew?
There is a tributary, with the minor tributary Honeywell Lake or Honeywell stream by the DEC, and then the federal calls it a riverine and intermittent flows. That was provided in secret documentation. There was 2 maps of each of those. But there will be, I mean, we're well outside of the corridor of that as well, so there's no impact to that there.
Matthew, just following up, and we'll get to it, but is that a fair statement that there are no federal or state wetlands?
And, I mean. You can see that. Yeah, can I see that?
Man, I don't know, I can give you this too if you'd like. That was the response letter, in case we get on, your comments.
Yeah, so, I mean, per this resource mapper, I guess, yeah, they would be outside of the zone. The thing is, it does trigger. This trigger for wetlands, I believe, for in the EAF mapper or yeah, for the surface water features federal waters.
Yeah, I think that's referring to the riverine there.
Yeah.
That's different regulations than the wetlands.
I'm just curious why, if there is a riverine or a way through here, why it wasn't shown on the plan?
Well, there was a map that was submitted with the secret documentation that it showed it on the state and federal map.
We'll probably make that as a condition to show it.
Yeah, that's why on the EAF, it says E2H. IV, it's a surface water features wetlands name, it's federal waters. It's probably referencing the riverine, the EAF mapper terms it as wetland.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that on mine as well.
Okay. So that means there was nothing that would trigger either showing wetlands on the site plan or the 100-foot buffer. Is that correct?
Well, there's still the federal water.
The riverine.
The
right.
river, we'd want
Which-
to probably want to show where the stream
Yeah,
is.
which brings up his comment. We can absolutely show
Okay.
that line on there. That's
All right, well, that clears things up. All right, the barn that's there, the town has a policy that's derived from the code, of course, that you can't have what's called accessory buildings or accessory structures without a primary residence, without a primary building. So could you explain how it got there and what you know about it?
Yeah, so the barn was constructed in 1988. It's on or I'm sorry, I think it's called real property, Monroe County real property.
That's
So,
the only reference I saw.
yeah, so I believe, I mean, from my understanding, 1988, it's been there for 35 years, and it was there when I bought it this October, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know any more about it than that? Why a person put it there? Is the barn in reasonable shape? You're gonna keep it and maintain it?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
very good shape, yep.
And I noticed that there's no dimension shown for the side setback.
Yeah, so, again, I'm, because of, Sharon being out, I did create the
Okay.
response letter there, and, I can give you my little half size here. That, some of his comments on the hydrant and setback, so,
Okay, so it is.
It-
Oh, it's
24.4. My understanding from, a local was the town actually requested that the barn had been shifted over from the original layout to maintain that 25-foot setback. Now, I don't know, maybe they were 6 or whatever, 7 inches off when they measured it that day, but I provided a copy of a boundary survey that was completed at the time of the purchase this year. And that's what they called it out. It was 24.
Robert,
So,
So Robert, can you comment on if it's 24.4 instead of 25 feet?
Yeah, so the code, the code requires 25-foot setback. For purposes of the planning board, obviously the planning board has the ability to refer this to the zoning board to get a variance as a condition of approval, for instance. If given the, I'll say minute and potentially not even requiring a variance, if it originally was 35 feet away and moved, you could always condition it upon review of the building inspector, code enforcement office department. Who would ultimately be the one who normally would make the decision that it go to the zoning board. So for instance, if I back up, if the bar was originally constructed before and it was 24.4 feet away, the building department would make the decision, do you need to go get a variance or not? So if the planning board would feel more comfortable, conditioning approval on the determination from the building department about whether it needed a variance.
Maybe that's a better way to go. Yeah.
Especially given the minute amount of. difference.
So the problem is, as a planning board, we really can't deviate from the town code. We can't do interpretations.
Yep.
But we can refer it to the building inspector who essentially can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's probably what we'll do.
I guess out of curiosity, what impact would the existing barn have on the approval of the proposed building since it's already there?
Well,
Is it
the,
necessary for that to be
yeah,
part of the approval process? Shouldn't it
we,
be separate matters?
we want to note it. We want to be sure it's on the map.
Yeah.
So again, our understanding of the code is that you're not allowed to have an accessory structure without the primary building. Some towns say you can start your barn if you have a building permit for the primary residence. Since it's there, I think we're just gonna note it and go ahead with your approval because it'll become conforming once your house is built.
Right.
Yeah,
It'll
okay.
fix the nonconformity by
Right.
putting primary.
Understood. Thank you.
So it won't hold anything up, and I think that's rational.
Thank you.
All right, so some folks have expressed concern about the steepness of your driveway. I'll give my story now. I actually know people reasonably well in Mendon who have had a longer driveway than this. It slopes down to their garage. And they bought the house maybe 3-4 years ago, and they've had a problem with the runoff from the driveway just going right into the garage, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I would hope that you're aware of that and will actually have a lower area in front of the garage that drains out well to the sides.
Yeah, the
rather than
intent is
anything that
to-
runs into the garage.
Yep.
I couldn't tell from your map because I can see your house is higher than the surrounding land, but typically garages can be 1 to 2 feet lower than a house, so
Correct, yep.
you just want to make sure your garage is high enough that your driveway doesn't drain into it, obviously.
It
But-
looks like it's pitched.
Yeah, the intent is to pitch the driveway towards the
Okay.
front lawn to slow down the flows. And then, that'll slow it and direct it around the house and septic system.
It's pitched higher on the north end.
Yep,
Drain to the south.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
all right.
To just add to that, there is no, as far as your engineer determined, there's no need for a culvert.
Well, that was
at
also
that
based
low
on,
point,
what's that? I'm
at the
sorry.
low point of your driveway. There's no need for a culvert.
That's correct, yeah. And then I also met with DJ Kyle on site to discuss the driveway off the road, and he said a culvert up near the road
near the
is
road.
also not.
Well,
Which
you're
obviously,
sloping off the road quite a bit. so
Yeah, so
Culvert
it's-
there doesn't help the town
No,
at
there's
all.
no-
It's mostly for your drainage and a low spot between the road and your garage.
The only reason I asked is that the driveway to the north has a culvert about 1,500 feet back from the road.
yep,
I didn't know how much water actually would come out of there towards your house. So
yeah,
it doesn't appear to be, as far as the grades and there's no defined swale.
no,
Just
right.
looks like that, something built up on the north. I just want to make sure that you had no reason to,
Yeah, it's kind of, the grade actually comes up a little bit towards my property, so it almost like ponds in his yard. I think that his culvert was more or less to get the driveway up and divert the flow from either side of the driveway, kind of equalize it across that area.
Yep,
Um,
makes sense.
I mean, I would assume with heavy rains, but at that point, I think there's gonna be other
I
concerns. Yeah,
can
if
see
that
that,
makes
yeah.
sense, yeah.
I just had another question.
Yeah.
It looked like, right on the north edge, just, north of the existing barn. There are 3 trees shown on the plan.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the size of it's not called out, but it looks like quite a, steep cut right there. So it almost, those trees would be in danger of being,
Yeah.
having the root system compromised. So, and they're not on your property. So that was my concern is, are you, I don't even know what kind of trees they are, how big they are, but is that something that you've looked at as far as trying to maintain?
Yeah, I've actually spoke with a neighbor as well, on that area. And I know he didn't have any concerns on it, but obviously we would try to limit that. So that we're not digging into those root system and compromising the health of those trees.
And the only, in
Right on the edge,
Jim Basil's the engineer, right?
that's correct, yep,
I was just surprised that he terminated those contours way.
without rounding.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it just, it just looked a little, cut section, just. I would try to soften that a little.
Yeah,
bit.
it's certainly gonna be smoothed out.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely, yep,
All right.
understood.
It's just-
It wasn't long ago we approved the neighbor to the north.
Been there for what, 13 years, or something like that?
Is it that long? ago?
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago.
I have to say-
Got to know him a little bit over the last couple of months, so.
Anything else, guys? Nope. All right, so we'll start going through the document. All right, so the environmental addendum, that's a form that is unique to Rush, and you did fill it out.
If I may too, I apologize, there was some confusion because I checked off no on the water corridor. I misread it as if there was gonna be impact to the border, not if it's on site, so
Okay,
that should be yes, so I'd like to just clarify
Okay.
that, but everything else on.
all right. So, and we've been over the wetland, so I guess officially we can say we don't need to classify anything as a wetland. So there is a water course corridor, as small as it may be, that's fine. as I said, this is a form that's unique to the Rush. It is a requirement of the town code, so we do request it. Even though I think the environmental seeker process handles everything that we need. Okay, you submitted actually two short environmental assessment forms, so-called EAFs. One looked like it might have been hand done, and one used the mapper.
Yeah,
And
there
there's a
was,
difference.
Sharon had reached out about that
Okay,
originally, so
I redid it.
yeah, it should, the old one should have been replaced with the, yeah.
Okay, I won't go over everything. It was filled out, but I used the mapper version. And it does state 12B is the project site or any portion of it located in or adjacent to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, archaeological site inventory, and that was checked yes. That's not an unusual thing, kind of where the lower part of Rush is kind of between Todiacton and Oak Openings.
Yep.
And it seems like a lot of stuff in there gets flagged. So unfortunately, you probably will have to contact SHPO.
Yeah, I have done that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
you got it
in this
already?
edition, you should probably have this, because I've looked through it, there's a lot of information in there, so if they're no impact better, they should satisfy that requirement.
You got it. So they must turn these around pretty quickly then. The SHPO office, I mean.
Yeah,
If I've ever had one is 4 minutes. I'm not even kidding.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, usually if there's nothing sensitive within a couple days.
That's good. That's very good.
That's right at their desk, right at their desk.
say 4 days.
Okay, so I might as well go ahead and read this in then. So this is New York State Parks Recreation Historic Preservation. Dear Nick Binner, thank you for requesting the comments of the Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation. We have reviewed the project in accordance with the New York State Historic Preservation Act of 1980. These comments are those of OPR HP and relate only to historic cultural resources. They do not include potential environmental impacts. And talks about seeker. So based on this review, it is the opinion of OPR HP that no properties, including archaeological and or historic resources listed in or eligible for the New York State and National Registers of Historic Places will be impacted by this project. And it's signed. Okay, very good. Next one is item number 13. Does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by the federal, state, or local agency? And that is also checked yes. So despite that, we're happy that we really have nothing to regulate here, nothing to worry about. I think we've got evidence of that. Item number 15, does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed by the state, federal government, state or federal government as threatened or endangered? And that is checked yes, and the bald eagle is stated.
There is correspondence in there with.
There is already?
wildlife regarding the bald eagle species, there's an email basically attesting that they ran it through the IPAC system.
Okay.
Species database and found that there were no bald eagles. I think in 2017 there was one. Then
I think it was, they said approximately a mile.
I was gonna say, I didn't want to misquote, it was half mile or mile, but I couldn't remember. And that there's only a requirement for a take permit within 600 feet.
Okay. I'm impressed. You've done good at following up on these things. So this is from Tim Sullivan, who is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, New York Field Office. Thank you for your call this morning regarding federally protected species at your project site. I screened the project using our agency database and the information you provided, including what was entered in our information and planning for conservation IPAC system. Our records indicate that an active bald eagle nest was located on Honeoye Creek in 2017, approximately 1 mile from the proposed project site. Our regulations under the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act recommend an incidental take permit be obtained if activities within 660 feet of an inactive nest occurred during the breeding season from January to August. It does not appear that the construction of a single-family residence would disturb the bald eagle nesting at your project location, given the distance and landscape setting, quote, or parentheses, existing residential development. Okay, that's good. So this is something also we run into often. The irony is, we often get the feedback that they can't tell us where the bald eagle nest is because they don't want to disclose it because other people might want to go look at it and disturb it. So this is the best report that I'm seeing.
Where is it?
My daughter lives over right in front of Todiacton, like you could say in Todiacton in Mendon. And there is a bald eagle that flies over their house with some regularity. So one day I'm sitting there looking at a hummingbird going through some flowers and a bald eagle flies over. Boy, what extremes is that? It's pretty amazing.
There they are, impressive.
Yeah, they're huge. Okay, so I won't go over the rest of the seeker document. There's nothing else there that's worth mentioning. Okay, Department of Planning and Development. So I'm not just going through and reading documents into the record here. This is General Municipal Law, Section 239M, zoning. Referred to the Development Review Committee, DRC, yes. So this is the Monroe County Department of Planning and Development comments. Applicants are encouraged to contact other county departments and non-county agencies to ensure all permitting requirements for this project have been satisfied. And by the way, this is dated today. There's another story behind this, and that is that yesterday we noticed we did not have this document. We talked to the county folks and explained our situation and said, well, get us a request, and they turned it around in one day. So that may be a record there too, Matthew. One day for the County Department of Planning and Development. Frankly, otherwise, we probably would have had, the law requires we have this feedback. And we would have had to table your application for another time because we didn't have the studies.
Very good, thank you.
Well, thank them.
Yeah.
And I did profusely thank them. 2, according to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, and the United States Geological Survey National Hydrography Data Set, it appears a portion of the stream is located on the subject property. Streamside, sometimes called riparian zones or stream corridors, are the link between land and water, and the health of streams depend in large part on the condition of the stream side. Research has shown that naturally vegetated corridors along streams provide numerous benefits essential for human health and welfare. Healthy stream corridors can reduce flooding downstream, trap sediment, remove dissolved contaminants, provide shade, contribute leaf matter, important for insect food and fish habitat, provide wildlife habitat, offer recreational opportunities, and increase aesthetic value and desirability of a property. In order to protect the stream corridor, mitigate potential flood impacts on downstream properties, and prevent contaminants from entering the stream, consider the following. Maintain a healthy vegetated streamside buffer for preserving trees and shrubs along the stream edge. Limit tree cutting to removal of large branches that fall into the stream and divert stream flow and cause erosion. Minimize channelized storm flows through the streamside buffer to filter contaminants and reduce erosion. Reduce impervious areas near the stream side, and where necessary, use stone or brick instead of pavement and concrete for driveways and walkways. Exclude vehicles, livestock, or excessive pedestrian traffic. Reduce or eliminate buffer area exposure to fertilizer, herbicides, pesticide, animal waste, household and automotive chemicals, trash, debris, and piles of leaf litter. Maintain septic systems. 3. Article 25 AA of the New York State Ag and Markets Law, titled Ag Districts, provides counties with the opportunity to create agricultural districts for the purpose of protecting and promoting the agricultural industry. This project occurs in Monroe County's Eastern Agricultural District. According to our review of recent aerial photographs and agricultural district maps, this project occurs on or within 500 feet of land and agricultural production in Monroe County's Eastern Ag District. Therefore, an ag data statement has been submitted for this project as required in section 283-A of Town Law and Article 25AA of the New York State Ag and Markets Law. Monroe County Ag Data Statement form can be found at, well, we've already submitted it. If an ag data statement form is necessary, the clerk of the board should mail a written notice of the application to the owners listed on the ag data statement. Development of this property should be designed so that it does not alter existing drainage facilities used by adjacent parcels. If the land is being farmed, the applicant is encouraged to contact the adjacent farmer and the Monroe County Farmland and Agricultural Protection Board to discuss the proposed development. For further information regarding the Monroe County Farmland Ag Protection Board and the Monroe County Ag and Farmland Protection, the applicant can contact Bob King, Senior Ag Specialist. And it says, if you have any questions regarding this review, please contact me at, and the number, and Yizwan Lin. Yizwan Lin, if that's the way you say it, is the lady who got this to us in one day. So that's an acknowledgement for her. This is the Monroe County Development Review Committee. Has reviewed the project subject application and have the following comments that need to be addressed prior to submission of final plans for approval. Monroe County Department of Health, MCDOH, contact Brett Gobe with questions. The proposed project utilizes a private wastewater treatment system and will require approval by the Monroe County Department of Health. Monroe County Department of Transportation, MCDOT was not sent because it's a town road. Monroe County Department of Environmental Services, Division of Pure Waters. This project was not sent to Monroe County Environmental Services for review. It's because you got your own septic. New York Department, DOT, it was not sent to them because you're on a town road. You do have approval from the Monroe County Water Authority for a 1-inch copper water service in the right of way, followed by 1-inch polyethylene private water service as depicted in the plans, signed by Anthony Biazik, professional engineer. So you do have the ag data statement for one farmland owner of field crops. I believe that's across the road, is that right?
Yeah, across the road and across the,
Yeah.
another property, yeah.
Okay, so it's not that close, but it is apparently within the 500 feet. And you do show that. Okay. MRB, Matthew, you want to go over your letter? And then
Yeah.
if you go over item by item, feel free to respond if you have responses already provided.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of, I can go over
Okay,
item by item, but a lot of the issues or comments that I had have already been addressed, so this is a permitted use. The second, comment just addresses in summation, the EAF mapper, I guess discrepancies at the time of review, which I think we've addressed, but I'll address those in the seeker comments. It is a seeker type 2 action with no further action or determination of significance required by the board. Short EAF was submitted by the applicant. We have question 11. Did we discuss just the answer on the wastewater utilities? I think I described how wastewater is treated at plate.
yeah,
I think
did
the
that.
original one that I reviewed, I don't think it answered that question.
Okay,
You probably addressed it in your comment.
Yeah, the explanation of the on-site wastewater wasn't written on the seeker,
Which
but
is,
the resubmission clarifies.
Yep.
Correct.
which is good, that addresses that, 12B or the comment number 4 addresses question 12B of the seeker form, that's SHPO, and as we've discussed, the no impact letter has been issued. Comment 5, talks about federal water bodies and wetlands, which we've discussed, relative to the riverine that exists on the north, or was that east or west? Like north there.
West.
Yeah,
West, I assume this is north, I think it's north.
so Riverine is spelled river with an INE on the end, that it? Okay, I'm not familiar with that term.
Question 15, spelling, not my strong suit, but it is. It's a riverine. Comment 6 would be question 15, which was the bald eagle, which we have addressed. And then the site plan comments, just a matter of clarification, to identify today as the date, although the normally scheduled meeting would have been December 26th. Comment 8 was just relative to the accessory structure of the barn, which we've already discussed. And 9 being the setback distance relative to that accessory structure. Comment 10, site plan should show the location of the nearest fire hydrant. My understanding is the updated site plans indicate that.
Yeah. It's all right. Again, this was all sent electronically.
Yeah,
so-
no worries. I just haven't seen it yet. So
Yep. Yeah, so sorry for the size, but
it's what it is. So I would have printed it. Yes, so it's there. There's the 100-foot wetland buffer. However, that would be the federal riverine. General notes on the roof drains. You said splash
So
block.
go back to the wetland, the number 11. So there is no 100-foot buffer to show, right?
Well, it's federal riverine. I still think it's subject to a 100-foot buffer, just not regulated by DEC.
Okay. So that would need to be shown.
that's the case. I believe it's only for wetland,
Only for a wetland.
I believe. Don't quote me.
I've
on
never
that.
heard of that.
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
it's
I'll have
only
to-
for wetlands,
okay,
in my experience, but
So you've never heard of.
Then, yeah,
riverine
then we'll
requiring
not need
buffer?
to-
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Right.
I
then
mean,
we'll
we,
not-
we're still well outside of 100.
Right,
but-
yeah, and I don't have any concerns as to, the development's impact on the federal water body. For question 12, you addressed it and you said splash box, correct? That the
Yeah.
leader drain
Well,
to.
you do have the one that would be at the southwest corner of your proposed residence. Does show connecting to an underground pipe that daylights close to the
Daylights,
center of the
correct.
property.
Yep.
So our application form, as you may notice, is two things. One, it says that roof drains should be directed either to French drains or splash blocks. But it also says water should be directed away from the septic system.
Correct.
So my proposal is we just say that is okay. That it's not necessarily a splash block because it goes underground and then surfaces somewhere else, which is equivalent of a splash block in a different location.
Yeah, to a
That's
splash
even
block.
better.
Draining away, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say it's an
okay.
improvement over
Okay, yeah, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
draining
wholly.
away from
Yeah.
the.
That was
septic.
also a specific request from Brett at the county when he did the septic review.
They did, okay, good.
Show that line.
Yeah, and I'd say that's really
My bad,
better
yeah.
than what the baseline would be. And then the other one is number of bedrooms and bathrooms, but I think you stated that you clarified on this plan as well,
It's on the application.
on an application.
Yeah,
That's just confirmed. I mean, it's a 1,500 gallon septic tank, so I'm not really concerned with capacity for a 3-bedroom. Yeah,
on
so,
page, I think it's page 4, the details, Brett had me clarify that the system was. Well, the requirement was a 3-bedroom, that was the design, but it's also has the capacity for 4 bedrooms.
a 3 to 4 bedrooms,
Correct.
1,500 count.
Yeah, exactly.
And my comment 14 was Monroe County Department of Health, which I believe you've already corresponded with them. That's in your,
Yeah, I provided the email.
response
portion
packet.
as well.
Yep.
Yep.
and comment 15, just discussed driveway culvert. As you said, you consulted with their engineer, said it's not necessary. Second is just or 16 is the proposed erosion sediment controls. On the plan, Steve, I know you had silt fence. along
Yeah,
it. I
so-
just wanted to make sure that
So,
if there was going to be any erosion sediment controls closer to the riverine, and that was when we were still discussing wetlands and wetland buffers, so it was really the genesis of that comment.
Okay.
And then the last is regarding the drainage easement, which we can discuss.
Well, let me explain that because that's another important bullet that you're dodging. The town requires essentially an easement for substantial waterways or streams of certain nature. Not only so that they can get in to clean it out, so it doesn't block up and cause flooding on other properties, but the the worst thing I think about it, it requires giving them the ability to traverse your property, even to get to the back end to do that kind of thing. So since this is not what we're calling a stream of any significance, we're not going to require that drainage easement. And that it's kind of a nasty thing to go through the legal process to register that with the county.
Yep. Understood.
Okay,
Like you said, a solid response as far as addressing many of the comments.
okay. The town has what's called a conservation board who has the duties to oversee kind of environmental things that go on in the town. And they have reviewed this application. So I'll read their comments, and I don't think it's anything we haven't already covered. Conservation Board comments, there is concern about the slope of the driveway. While the plan is for crushed stone, any future paving of the driveway would likely cause severe draining problems and possible flooding. I think you've addressed that with the slopes, is what I believe is the case. Some of the submissions, descriptions appear to be inconsistent with actual property and do not accurately state the presence and or proximity to wetlands, water course, and trees. For example, the forms represent that there is no water course, but in fact, a tributary of Honeoye Creek runs through the corner of the parcel. Questions are raised as to how negative effects on the natural features will be mitigated. Well, I think we've been through that, and it's a riverine and not a wetlands. Similarly, and specifically, what action is planned to protect existing trees on the parcel? I don't know that in general trees need to be protected, but Carl did raise the question about that was one regrading near the barn, I believe, right, for the driveway going to the barn. So I guess that is just adds to the caution of you're trying to do what you can there. Wetlands buffer should be shown on the site map and we'll determine that's not needed. Plans for erosion and sediment control should be shown on the site map, and that's the same as MRB stated, and I believe you're comfortable with that. And it actually states, it is noted that most of the bullet points are also noted in the MRB comments regarding the application. The conservation concurs with and supports the MRB observations.
I looked at Street View on Google, and it's already cleared the trees.
We started
Yeah.
prepping a little.
I've been
bit.
by there a couple of times.
So I was surprised to see such an updated picture.
Yeah, it was, they must have came down the road like a week after we got.
So
was like the
looks like
day
you're
after.
prepped for what you. need to
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
So-
no, absolutely. Trying to get ahead of the eight ball.
For what it's worth, I might as well add this. So when we were investigating what history we could find of your barn, and we saw the same thing in the Monroe County Real Estate Portal, that it was built in 1988. In the town hall, right over in the next room, we have what's called a street file or street folder. So many of the street addresses have a folder, and we keep historical information in there. The building inspector did look that up, and 301 Keys Road, the street folder is empty, which he says is unusual. So there's nothing in there about your barn or anything else.
I
He
think-
has,
If I may.
Sure.
I know before I purchased the property, I actually submitted a request for any information on the property, and there was a previous site plan that was approved. And
did you see a plan?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
wonder if
was
that would take
the
it out.
neighboring lot, it used to be a 5 acre lot. They subdivided into 2.5 acre lots.
It had a different address?
I don't know. The address was the same, yeah.
Huh,
I mean, obviously nothing ever went through with it.
yeah, so
Because that barn wasn't on that.
I wonder if
that site.
whatever was there was not replaced.
Yeah.
Um,
I only got electronic copies of it.
Okay,
I was allowed to come in and take a, photo of it on my phone.
okay, so that was as a 301 Keys
great.
Road address.
Yep. Yeah, that's where the 24.1 and 24.2 for the neighboring property and the tax ID number came from.
Okay,
There was a split subdivided lot there.
and was it north or south that it was subdivided from? Would it have been
It
subdivided?
was, so my
subdivide-
property's the north piece and the south property.
Okay,
Those two were combined at one point.
So subdivided from the property to the south.
I believe it was called the Price subdivision. But, like I said, obviously, and nobody went through with it, but
Okay, well, I would like to make
the
sure.
barn wasn't on there though. I
Okay.
will say that, I don't.
Well, the building inspector did say that there's what he called a now obsolete card file. So apparently it was a card file perhaps maintained by building inspectors historically. It said there was a building permit 86-56 issued 7/29/86 for a two-story residential structure with a garage. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I had. Yep.
And there was also building permit 86-57 issued 7/28/86 for a 24/40 storage barn. By the way,
That's the barn, 24/40.
24/40. It is 24/40?
That's correct. Well, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so there's another change you need to make. Because I believe 24 times 40 is 960 square feet.
Yeah,
And
the
this
barn is,
shows 645 square feet.
That's the finished elevation.
645.
Oh, that's what it is.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't put the square, I didn't
okay.
expect the
All right,
existing barn to
So
be finished.
it would be good to do though,
Sure.
put the actual setback on the plan if it's not already there. I think it is, yeah. And
Yep.
it probably would be good to put the barn size on it as well. Thank you. My mistake.
Do you want the size of the barn or the square foot?
Square foot is fine.
Okay.
He said the listed owner at that time was a Gary Davis, or whatever it's worth to you historically. Okay, I think I've gone through everything that I had. Anybody else have anything else? Any members?
I'm all set.
Set, I'm good. Okay. Gene, any comments?
No.
Robert or Matthew, you're all set?
For me.
Okay. I make a motion that we close the public hearing. Do I have a
Scott,
second?
before we do
Oh,
that,
I'm
just make
sorry.
sure there's no one from the.
Thank you,
public.
appreciate that. Anybody else? Mac, you're out there? Anybody else on Zoom or in the room? No other comments? Nobody's waiting, Sharon, that you know of? Matt, can you hear us? You okay? Raise your hand. Okay. He's with us. All right. There's no other comments then from the audience or on Zoom? Now I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
Deputy Chairman Fox,
Aye.
Chairman Strong,
Aye.
Member Corbin.
Aye.
Member Nelson,
And don't forget, might as well get Mac.
Member Matt.
Oh, you can hear him. Okay. So the public hearing's closed. We've got all the information we're going to have. The way the process works, so we're going to hear another application now. And we will cycle back to our deliberation. So you're welcome to stay for that, or regardless, if you leave, you will get notified of our decision by our clerk, Sharon, in the next, I think it has to be within the next week or so, 5 days, whatever. You've done an excellent job of preparing for this, so I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
But you won't hear right away until we go through the next application. All right. You're welcome.
Very good.
Go back
Thank
and hang around if you want or not. Okay, the next application is an informal review. And it is just that, it is informal.
Yes.
Sharon, you want to, there is, I presume there is a notice for this sort of thing or not? No notice, okay. So this is, we call it 2023-13P by Capital Growth Buchalter Incorporated, if I said that right, I hope so. For Buchalter for a property at 5930 East Henrietta Road, site plan for a general dollar retail store. So that is the lot just to the north of what we commonly know as the Big M lot, the corner lot that's been empty for so long. This is not the Big M lot. This is the lot just to the north of that, right? And let me say too, that as an informal review, we will be open and honest with you and tell you all that we can and all that, answer any questions that we can. But we're not bound by anything we say tonight because it's not a formal legal event. It's not a public hearing.
Right.
So introduce yourself and explain what you'd like to do.
Yes, so my name is Victor McCallum of Capital Growth Buchalter. We're a developer out of Birmingham, Alabama. We do projects across the country, and it's one of our tenants that would like to be in the town. They typically reach out to us and tell us where.
Can people on hear you? Is it better to use a handheld one or is that okay?
Sure.
You might have to turn it on.
So what was I? Introduction. Yes, so they reach out to us as a developer and they tell us where they would like to be in which spot and we try to fund them a lot, develop it. And, you know, we touch the entire project all the way from design to getting it to construction. As you mentioned today, this is just the preliminary, trying to get feedback from the board, anything that could be helpful. What I distributed are, I'm sorry, I don't have enough copies, but that's a site plan and the elevations that we're proposing. And the second sheet just shows the truck path that our engineer designs. We're proposing, as you mentioned, a Dollar General store on 5930 East Henrietta Road. It will be about a building a little bit over 10,000 square foot with associated parking. We will have utilities on site that will include, your water, sewer, and everything. We don't have sewer connection to municipality, so we'll have septic in the back. There was a little bit of a conversation earlier regarding wetlands, so I would like to bring that also to the attention. There's little wetlands in the back that are federal. They are shown on one of the, yes, and for some reason it printed better on one of the plans.
And the truck turning.
That little.
This
little
guy
finger
here?
shape, yep,
Yeah.
we are missing it. Because of.
So what's this?
Yep.
This is the wetland here. And
Right.
is this? This is the one up here too?
Right, that's
So this is what's not a wetland. Is that what you're
correct.
saying?
Yep,
Okay.
the wetland is this. And comes back here and.
So all
back
this is
around.
wetland.
And this.
And then, okay,
Right.
yeah.
Federal wetlands, so no 100-foot buffer. And we're avoiding them as seen on there. Our Dollar General typically is open 7 days a week, typically 7 to 10. Sometimes they. Depends
Say it
on
again,
after
7
they,
days a week and what typical hours?
typically are, they're 7 to 10 is what they
7
initially,
AM to 10 PM?
7 AM.
Is that what you said? 7 AM to 10
to 10
PM?
PM, but they do, after they do open, they do try to analyze the market and see if they need to change it, so it will most typically be around the 8 o'clock to 10 hours. And obviously, we'll go through the entire process of submitting an application, all the discussions that we need to for all the permits. We started engaging conversations with DOT. That was one of the comments they made on the drive. We had it initially on the south end of the property. And now they kind of asked us to further it further north, closer to the cemetery. If you're familiar with where the lot is, the cemetery Again, if you're familiar with that lot,
Here?
would
Yep.
be that
Cemetery's
little
this.
square.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, okay.
and then
Yes.
our additional drive was
Yep.
on the southern end over there where they asked us to move it further back.
Well, the advantage of being there too, it gets it further
Oh,
away
you're
from,
looking at the older
it
ones.
gets your driveway further from the intersection.
Okay.
Who asked you to move it?
Well,
DOT,
DOT asked you,
DOT.
okay.
We didn't,
DOT, okay.
yes, we
okay.
started engaging also
That answers
preliminary
your question.
conversations with them. Similar to this, to get their feedback and what they might ask us to do, or, you know, what their view on the driveway would be.
Okay, my guess is they wanted to get your driveway away from the intersection.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they asked us to do, make this change where it's now closer to the cemetery side.
Right, am I saying this right? It better aligns across the street with another driveway.
It's, yeah, that drive that shows a little bit to the north and across from us, I think that's Pleasant Drive,
Yes,
just for kind of
yes, it is.
bigger picture.
Okay.
We will be, with this layout, we are complying with all the bulk requirements. We will be requiring a couple of variances for the parking count.
In that regard, so somewhere you showed there's 140 feet front setback from a state road.
Yes,
Do you know that is, our law is from the center line of the road, not from the right of way? So I couldn't tell what you were 140 feet from.
we just, our engineer just shows measurements of the building from different corners so that we can kind of visualize where it sits.
Okay,
So that 140 that's right there, that's actually from the property line. So it's past, it's past the 140 from the center line.
All right.
so did they?
Sorry, I
understand-
should have printed a bigger one. That there's a measurement. You're looking at the truck wrap. It's the one behind it.
Oh,
Sorry, I didn't have enough copies of those either. There's 140
All right.
to the edge of the
So
property line.
do your engineers know that our requirement is from the center line, not from the right of way?
Right, so we're compliant.
Okay,
I'm
you
assuming.
definitely,
Right.
at the minimum and further.
Right, we can scoot closer,
No,
visibility.
I'm actually not suggesting whether it's better or not.
Good to know that.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah, yeah.
There's an argument to be made. We would like to be consistent with other properties.
Yes,
Rather than have it setting back further.
Right.
That's not necessarily a valid argument, but maybe it is. So I'm just saying there's some latitude there that your 140 feet is actually more than 140 feet as our minimum is defined.
yes, and so with this layout, we will be requesting two variances. One for the minimum loading area and one for the parking count, which we can tweak as we get into further design. This is as far as we
Okay.
got with the preliminary site.
So you said minimum loading area and what the number of parking
Parking
spaces?
spaces.
So,
Our tenant has a peak holiday hours study that they show what they typically use. I'll provide a letter, of course, as part of on their study and whatnot, that's part of the application.
okay, for the number of parking spots.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being as a new facility, is that an area variance, Robert? If they want fewer parking
Number of
spaces?
spaces, yes.
Okay,
I mean, unless the code said no park,
yeah,
if it's a number issue, then it's an area variance.
yeah. So
Yeah,
the code's
I think-
very specific. It's
Right.
based on the square footage of the retail area. So that determines 60 some. And
64.
I think they're in a better position to know what they need than,
Right.
our code is.
Yeah.
But as you say, you'd probably just need a variance from the zoning board of appeals, and your argument, I think, would be pretty persuasive.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be requesting 35 instead of 65. That's our quick introduction. Those are also some elevations of
These,
what we're proposing, the building colors and material
do-
to be on it.
are there options? Are there other options that could be proposed? I mean, I noticed that you have a fairly new one, that maybe you're familiar with, maybe not, down in Hemlock. And it's green. It looks very nice. I'm not saying it's better for our location because this building kind of dominates the area and it's beige.
I'll make sure I have a picture of that
It's-
one you're
It's
talking.
also,
Okay.
it's also a gable roof.
The one with, yes, I think I know which one you're talking about. It was one, we didn't do that one.
Okay.
That's not one of our projects. I did try to present that for our new New York projects when I saw it, because I was driving by it. I need to find that picture. Yes, right here, you don't see it. Yes, she has it. Yep, that's the one I was thinking of. It's green, it's got the TP.
Is that the picture I sent, Robert?
Oh, I don't know. I Googled Hemlock Dollar.
Okay.
General.
Okay.
Pretty confident.
I did the same thing and I sent the picture around the.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. This is the one.
Unfortunately.
99% sure.
That is not going to be an option because of the material and the cost to get that gable built. It requires a different structure to support that. Those elevations will. This is not the exact store, but it is a similar store. That we have. That will have those colors, so that will be the front of the building with different formations, different orientations of the hardy plank. Which is we got the verticals, you got the lights on them and the shutters on the both sides. And then the long sides and the back.
So these
Shutters.
these windows are smaller, maybe the whole, that whole section is smaller, but it does have awnings like.
I don't know if these were exactly the same size building, because they also have
Okay.
different prototypes.
Would,
But
would
they're kinda-
would this, are you proposing similar awnings to what
Yep,
this shows?
Yep,
Yeah.
there's little awnings over those windows, you can see them when they come from the side. And then there's you can kind of see the side windows. We are proposing a different color for the bottom brick than it to be the same, so it's kind of like this brick.
Are those working windows?
No.
They would not, they're just
Nope.
appearance.
Yep.
Because I didn't think you'd want them in your.
Yeah, the walls usually have all the
Yeah, you use-
refrigerators
the
and
ones I've been in, you use all the spaces there.
every inch, yes. And like I mentioned, any feedback, anything stands out to you guys, out of the bat, something.
Yeah, I have a few questions.
Yes, please.
Can we talk about them? Would you guys be willing to put, cause I personally like to put some screening here, cause to drive by and see a side of a building, to me, wouldn't be very,
So your objection is these sides?
well, going by the road,
Yeah.
you see the side here, so thinking,
Right.
some kind of trees or bushes, shrubbery,
Right,
anything
and
there?
and I'm sure we will study everything related to the landscape too, because I'm sure we're gonna have to buffer in different directions.
So
I
you'd
haven't
be
looked at-
willing to do that?
Yes, 100%.
Okay,
We've done it, there's no issue with it. This is that side that would be facing here. And then the long sides would also have.
this is the front of the building, no?
No,
No, that's.
Okay.
that faces the road. This is.
The shorter side, yep.
Yeah, okay,
But
It
so,
will be this
so,
way.
right, so what's facing the road
Okay.
is somewhat decorative.
yeah,
right?
okay, I
Uh,
thought it was
These long sides that go back,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, one faces the
Mhm.
parking,
would be reason, I think, to put some screening or trees or something.
Yeah,
along
yeah,
the
okay,
Sides as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
the one
But-
that faces the parking has these two.
But a few
doors.
trees in front would also look very good.
Yes. Sure.
So you'd be willing to screen it?
Yes.
Another, and I don't know if you know that we have water issues in the hamlet of Rush. And maybe this is an MRB question, by them having I'm gonna call it a pond here. Would that help the town flooding issues, or would it hinder? What would it do for, if anything?
Would depend on the sizing. My understanding is that having not seen an actual design or any capacity or calculations. It would be sized to accommodate runoff from this site specifically.
That's it?
Yeah.
If we asked it to be bigger, what would it, could it help at all?
So you'd have to ask the
It's not-
question,
it's
where's
not
the
their
water coming from?
responsibility.
Yeah.
Typically, the water's coming down the valley over here.
The landowner is responsible for not exceeding existing runoff.
Okay,
So that's why the parking lot usually has a detention area.
so that would only be for that building?
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
that would- yeah, that
Okay.
would only handle the runoff for that site.
Fair enough.
So it's, but for all the impervious areas, the building and the parking. would be
But I
handled
mean,
by
this is
that.
a good point to speak of. I mean, you mentioned there's issues with water in the area. So do you anticipate surface detention potentially not working?
I would have to see the
Yeah,
designs and have
great.
our
Yeah.
drainage engineers look.
The waterway is at the edge of your property coming down through.
Okay,
Yeah,
Here,
We just can't make it any worse than it, it's
The-
not, if anything.
yeah, that's a,
but it's worth mentioning that folks in the hamlet here are very sensitive to development as it affects any water
right,
issues, because this hamlet, just up the street here does flood.
Right.
Honeyway Creek is what, right back behind us a little bit.
Right.
And there is a stream that comes from the valley that's up here, which would be to the east of your property,
Okay.
but a whole valley going back maybe a mile. And it all drains through a stream that comes under the intersection here and goes underground, it flows under the parking lot, what we call the Big M lot. Comes under the intersection and pops out on the other side of this building and continues on to Honeyway Creek right back here. So that area sometimes does flood. That's why I'm not saying it's your problem or the fault of this lot, but there's gonna be a lot of sensitivity around
right.
making sure that the stormwater is handled as good as we can.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay,
I just, I can't see it on here, but this is a WB 62 truck turning radius.
Yes, yes, it would be 60, 67.
let's call it what, 62?
67.
67, comes in once a week.
So it's
It's at 50,
53,
yeah,
53 foot trailer.
yeah, something like that. 53, 52,
Thanks.
something.
So that's why you're showing the semi tractor trailer
Yes.
turnarounds,
Yes,
right? That's why you're showing, you have this map that
Yes.
is the
right,
tractor trailer turnarounds, whatever you call it.
yes, because they have to do the entire maneuver on site.
Yeah.
We do the
So,
hammerhead
so
when they pull in
so they do get deliveries with tractor trailers
once a week.
once a week.
The rest is just box truck.
But at the same time, there are other smaller trucks coming more frequently, I presume.
Right.
And because in a lot of supermarkets, for example, it's the suppliers of various goods that actually stock the shelves, and I think
Right.
you guys would be the same way
Right.
with
and-
smaller trucks.
Right, and on the plan, if you notice that where the truck is backing up, that is the only loading area.
Right.
So we kind of
It's not,
force them to back up into here, out of the way, so they come in, pull in into the hammerhead here and reverse,
okay.
and have to unload from the back right here out of everybody's way.
And is that done when customers are parked there? How do you manage that?
The truck route that is shown is supposed to have the truck driver maintain the extent of his truck within the heavy duty pavement. He's not supposed to be touching any customer
Okay.
parking. And that room in the back allows him to back up enough to
Okay,
not block anybody and get them in the way.
so there's no loading dock, it's just that back door with a ramp to it.
Right.
You talked to state DOT, what did they say about a traffic study?
We didn't submit a stage one yet. We had a very informal conversation like this. And they gave me also a courtesy review because they're supposed to submit a stage one. And that was their comment on the drive. They said they might require
Traffic impact.
traffic studies and whatnot, and obviously we'll have to comply and get a permit from them. And, you know, every approval would be conditional on DOTs.
So for snow removal, where would you push the snow? Are you gonna eat up some parking spaces based on when you snow plow? So what, if you have 60 or whatever you had and you use,
Sometimes
Or
as part
thir-
of the design, they
How do you
have
do
a side of the pavement that doesn't have a curb. And then they'll push it over there to that grass area. So they'll have, our engineer will have it marked where we'll have a snow tile area.
Yeah, but it would be good to show that on the, in
Right.
fact, I think our application states we want to see where the snow's plowed too.
just didn't wanna eat up all the parking spots for snow.
That's something I had to get used to moving from Alabama.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, we have to design a snow spot.
Factory.
So your parking area here, that's parallel to East Canada Road, shows it almost going to the property line. Would there be any consideration later of connecting that to whatever development comes in here? The lot to the south?
It will depend. Our tenants usually do not like to share drives.
Okay,
They like to share, they would share drives. They would have to know from the get-go and have restrictions with them. They don't want to compete, they don't want to open a drive and then down the dollar opens up or something like that.
oh, did that happen right next door?
They compete a lot.
Yeah,
and
my God.
yeah, they try to find not similar markets, but opposite ends of the markets. They try to, you know, if somebody's coming into town from this way, they're leaving that way, they try to catch different angles.
Well, so that gets into one of my general questions, is kind of what's the business case or what's the business model used by Dollar General? So there's a Dollar General about 5 miles away, south of here in Lima. There's also, I think, a Family Dollar in that same little town. There's a Family Dollar in Honey Falls, which is about 3 miles to the west.
Yeah.
So it is the idea is like a little country general store that every little village has these things?
Yeah, they consider themselves like a neighborhood market type. They're not like a store, like a Walmart where it's huge and just a lot of
Mhm.
pavement. It's something you can go in and get out real quick. It's the middle of the night. Forgot some postcards, somebody has school homework. That's a quick store you can go in and grab something from rather than, you know, the big one and the Walmart. So yeah, that's how they see themselves. I mean, I think they're have the numbers of, see if I do have notes on that. They do have an average, like how long it takes them to do an interaction and they're the type of business where, you know, customers come in and out, like they have quick pickup, I guess I should say.
Well, it's not a destination store, but
Right.
something for people
Right.
who live fairly close and have
Right. So it doesn't attract
not
people from out
not
of-
huge purchases
Right.
typically.
Nobody wants to drive.
Yep.
15 miles to go to a Dollar General.
Okay. So there is a rather strange part of our town code that's called landscaped malls. And it really refers to parking lot setbacks, but at this point in time, there's a requirement of actually some sort of barrier, which typically is interpreted to be curbs. Right, so that would mean that there would need to be a curb along East Henrietta Road, and there would need to be potentially a curb on the inside as well. And the location between the two would be landscaped. The minimum is 20 feet, and you've probably got a lot more than that. But just be aware that that part of the code exists. I did talk to our highway superintendent, and he frankly was not in favor of a curb along East Henrietta Road, and it gets back to our concern around flooding. So he would kind of rather have water come off East Henrietta Road and run into the landscaped area rather than have it funneled down the street further with a curb. But just be aware that that exists, and I'll talk a little bit later about how we may be changing the code in the next months to a year or so. The another part of our code, and you noted that on your plan, that we do require a 75-foot setback to a residential district, not a residential lot, but a residential district.
Right.
And the back of this property is up against a residential district. But in addition to that 75-foot setback, which you have no problem meeting, it does say that there needs to be 20 feet thereof shall be used to create a screened buffer zone. Such screening shall not be less than 4 feet in height and may be accomplished by deciduous and or evergreen plantings or by a fence or masonry wall of acceptable design. All such buffers and screening shall be properly maintained by the owner or owners of the screened commercial property. So that applies to my way of thinking. 4 feet doesn't do anything. I think we'd much rather see some maybe evergreens or something. I honestly don't know what the back of that lot looks like. Certainly anything that's there, that's already there, that's natural vegetation and natural trees of any type may meet all the requirements, okay? But just be aware, some sort of screening is required up against the back for residential lots.
100%. And we will, you know, as part of any of our developments, we try to avoid clearing unnecessary. There's no reason for us to get anywhere in the back there and start clearing and have just the grassland.
Yeah, so a lot of it's wetlands anyway. In
Right.
fact, that whole, but it looks
Yep.
like most of that area along the residential is wetlands, so.
Yeah.
Whatever's there would be kept and then hopefully would apply to the required screening. I like your plan for the dumpster. That's in an enclosure at the back of the building, so that's about as good as you can do. Maintenance of the gates, lots of times becomes a problem. People abuse them and they sometimes stop working, but I like the original design. Do Dollar Generals use outside storage or outside display?
Ice. Put it on an ice machine,
Other than the dumpster, is there anything that would be outside?
ice machine,
Nice machine.
an
Ice
ice
machine.
machine and a propane.
Okay, yeah, so.
Those are not,
That gets, our code actually currently says no outside storage. Now, I'm not gonna argue that that's rational or reasonable, but that's what the code says. That is one of the things we're working on changing. But if there is something like an ice machine or propane, it would require a special permit. As we envision the code perhaps being changed in the future, it will require a special permit for that outside storage. And right now, we just couldn't.
And I'm not sure, Scott, if that
Couldn't
is
allow it.
considered outside storage.
Okay,
You'd have to make that. The building department would have to make that
Okay.
interpretation. I don't know if there's a definition for outside storage.
just beware.
An ice,
no, that's
yeah.
understandable. We
Yep.
have to deal with some similar codes. We have, yeah.
Ice machine, I don't know.
We'll keep an eye on
Okay.
that conversation, yeah.
We talked about the flooding from the whole valley to the north. So again,
And so as far as what is the plan for the rest of the parcel, it's wetlands, but
Touchable.
I don't- just leave it
Yeah.
as is.
They'll leave it as is. It's the seller's selling us the entire lot as is. He doesn't want to mess with it. We're not, without no reason to develop anything else. And messing with wetlands is not our favorite thing. We moved the plan a little bit too, to make, I mean, we did already get a wetland delineation before to know the extent of it and
Oh,
move
okay.
the layout a couple of times. Make sure to avoid it.
so
The
the,
building was further north.
Right.
In the middle of the lot, roughly.
the Conservation Board did make mention of the stormwater runoff, as we discussed, proximity of the property to a cemetery. We have no particular codes around setbacks from cemeteries other than the normal lot setback. And protection of wetlands in the rear of the parcel, as you might expect. So I visited the closest Dollar General in Lima. And I noticed, so I parked the equivalent of here along the side of the building.
Right.
And that sidewalk, first of all, I felt was very narrow. And it was getting dripped on from the roof. So a sidewalk was not a place where a customer would want to walk. You kind of were forced to walk in the parking lot over some of those staked in concrete things that stick up as a alternative to curbing. That whole situation was just not very desirable in my viewpoint. And I thought the sidewalk should have been should have been something to prevent the water running off the roof onto the sidewalk, if that's where people are supposed to walk. And I would have much rather seen something safer like an actual curb so that cars can't come up on the sidewalk. That's typically what most stores do, is they have curbing at their sidewalk, so cars can't come up.
Right, so what we typically have, front sidewalk along the shorter side of the building, now where you parked, but facing the door, that's a 9-foot parking. 9-foot sidewalk, the width of it, 9 feet. The side one that you're referring to is 3.5. And the roof drains are not supposed to be draining on it. The roof drains are on the opposite side of the building. And what we typically do is actually take them into our detention system.
Okay,
So they go underground, piped, however may be the case. We never force for icing and people slipping and what.
so the whole roof drains to the opposite side, is that what you're saying?
The side that doesn't.
Shown here, shown here.
Yep, on the side that doesn't have a sidewalk.
Yep.
Yeah, see there, they're coming down on the grass side, not the parking lot
Okay,
side.
so nothing should be coming on
Correct.
that side.
Yep. Should be all back here, and if we do daylight it, it'll be to the grass.
Mhm.
It's not daylight, it will go underground, flush into our detention system.
Okay, so you're saying that whole roof drains to the south?
Right, so in this,
All the- that way,
in
all the
that
way.
case, it will be on, the roof drains will be on the back of there.
Okay,
So would the side park or sidewalk be 6 feet wide or 3.5 feet wide?
3.5. The sidewalk, along the long side of the building is 3.5. I mean, obviously, it's not possible to make it wider like a typical 5-foot sidewalk, because the landing in front of the door is a 5x5. Back door where you exit the loading.
Only ask because it looks like it's a 6 on here.
Does it look like a 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, this here. This here, so I can just. The building looks like that, the sidewalk here does this kind of semi. So this is 5x5, and then here it becomes 3.5. This width here. That makes sense.
okay. I think the drawing that showed where the tractor trailer trucks would come in and back around. Aren't there cases shown where the back wheels would actually extend over the blacktopped area, like up at the road? One of the rent drawings I saw.
Maybe this one.
Yeah, does it actually show the truck
Overhangs.
wheels exceeding over the paved area? And how do you handle that? Is that driving through the grass and destroying it?
I'm sure it was a typo, or potentially some of those dashed lines are not the tire itself, but it could be just a little bit of overhang of the truck front.
Yeah, that would be a lot of overhang.
I should have, a larger one, but we won't
Okay.
allow the truck to leave the blacktop. Or get into the customer parking spaces.
And explain a little bit about your light duty paving versus your heavy duty paving where the truck goes. Matthew, are you familiar with that? Is that common practice? That's normal?
Yeah, we try to make where customers park a little thinner.
And so it's a different depth of what, crushed stone as well as blacktop, both?
Yeah, we'll leave it up to the geotech. And if there's a code item from DOT for the drive itself, we'll comply with that. But DOT will, or geotech will tell us, based on the loads and the soils, what do they anticipate section 2.
Restroom facilities, you do have restrooms in each of these, right? And they're available for the public as well, for customers?
Yes. Two restrooms.
2 restrooms, different genders, or how's that done?
Yeah,
You don't know these days, okay,
I know you don't know these days, but I think it's still, both gender. Male.
okay. You didn't show any pictures of signs here, I think. I mean, I know the one on the building, but you also have a sign perpendicular to the street in the front. You don't have a picture of what that looks like.
I don't have that with me now, but I can, definitely bring that for our next meeting. We'll have our signage vendor, show the
Okay.
dimensions.
Does that have to be, setback, beyond the setback? I was gonna bring that up, but doesn't have to be
Yeah,
behind the front
we,
setback.
we have sign codes. The good news is they're far enough away from the intersection. It's not gonna be a intersection visibility problem. So there, I think that
I thought there was
the
a
code
thing-
does, this code does have requirements around the setback.
The only reason I'm remembering that is because of the high-tech drive that we made them, it had to be behind the setback.
Yeah, that was a corner lot though, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know
Yep,
the code
yep,
better than
yep,
I.
Yep, no, there are setbacks for signs. I don't think they're too onerous. There shouldn't be a problem. Okay, yeah, last thing I wanted to make sure you're aware of. This whole hamlet area is currently zoned commercial, so that's not a problem. That's what you're looking for anyway. We're not gonna do anything to prevent commercial buildings in the hamlet, but the current code is not practical for the rest of the use of the hamlet, which has a lot of apartments, single family dwellings, this government use, civic uses. So we're looking at a major change to the code here in the hamlet, of which the particular lot you're talking about, 5930, is a part.
Correct.
So we are looking at, we have already proposed substantial changes, and it's working its way through our internal lawyer here with Robert Marks. And eventually the town board will vote on whether or not they want to change the code. I don't think there's much in the new code that would prohibit your use any more than what you're prohibited by now. In fact, it would allow things like outside storage without
Right.
without interpretation other than getting a special permit.
Okay.
Um,
You know when that goes into effect?
well, it's working its way through. It probably will be at least several months.
Okay.
It could be even longer.
No, yeah. We can't really put a time frame on it because ultimately it's up to the town board to pass the law. So it's up to them to make the decision. And, you know, we certainly have it in a workshop form, but what the final product looks like, you know, may still change. But it's good to know that the code is changing, and I think generally speaking, you know, it's probably going to be for the better and take away some of the, you know, restrictions that, or at least some of the language in the code that is confusing or maybe too broad. So,
Gotcha. Well, we can always
Yeah.
double
So
check.
the one change that is in there is because the hamlet is generally old and small buildings, there's a maximum of 10,000 square feet. So it's interesting, this is just about there, but it's possible for 600 square feet, you may need a variance or something, should that law come into effect before this gets through our process.
Gotcha.
So just beware, there are changes coming along. I don't think they're a major harm to what you want to do. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
Freestanding signs, commercial, 15 feet, beyond the front setback.
Okay, so 15 feet from the front line. So what does front line mean? That's, yeah, so it's not center line of the road for sure. So maybe that means from where the road ends. We'd have to understand what that is. So there is a sign setback. Again, I don't think it's too onerous.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of space in the front for a sign.
Once we get into the detail, our engineer will.
Yep.
Clarify everything that needs to be.
Okay, any questions of us?
No, this was very helpful. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much. I'll run this by our office and we'll come back with more advanced plans
Okay,
and having looked into the code a little more, we'll probably have conversations on some specific stuff. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I just
sure.
I'm on the town board.
Yes.
I do, listening to this conversation, and thank you very much, been very informative. And we do want to encourage more business in the town, so this is good. I do like Paul Corbin's comments, anything for you to consider in terms of the screening.
Mhm.
I think would go a long way. And you didn't talk about lighting at all. We do have, I believe, an ordinance on that too, but from me personally, I like the dark sky initiative, and so I know this is the Hamlet, which is a little bit different. But I prefer more conservative lighting. This is a rural hamlet. And while we want businesses, I don't think we want anything glaring, at least I wouldn't. So signing and lighting and the screening, just to make it look like it belongs in the hamlet, and doesn't stick out.
Right, right.
But we do appreciate your considering this.
Thank you, yeah, well, the peace of mind. The lighting will have for another specific vendor that will do a design on the lot. No lights ever spilled out of our lot. Typically for a lot that size, kind of layout that we have, I don't know if you've seen the layout with the drive coming in on one side and another. Typically what it will end up being with having two parking lots on it. And then we got the one on the front of the sign, the building, and then the street pylons on it, the one that has some lights on it, lit itself, but not they're not floodlight type,
Right,
and everything turns off 45 minutes after the plus completely leaves.
Okay.
Nothing even stays on, and we check all the points around the property, and just goes out, it has that 0 point.
Right.
Yep,
okay,
we'll get that also taken care of.
thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else? I think Sue Mees was interested in attending. I don't know if she's on Zoom or not. Have any questions or comments?
Yes, I am here.
You have any questions?
I have a couple, and just to introduce myself to the representative for General Dollar, I am the historian for the town of Rush. So of course I, maybe look at things from a different lens. I am concerned with the cemetery located directly in front of the property. And even though I'm not sure if town code requires it, I didn't hear it being spoken of, but I would like to see some sort of buffering between the Dollar General property development and the cemetery. I think it's only fair and showing respect to those people that are buried there. I think it could also serve as some sort of a buffer or a catch for any litter or things like that that might get caught or blown. I would hate to see things like that gathering around the grave sites of our early town pioneers. My only other concern is, and Jean kind of mentioned this too, that I would like to see a structure that conforms aesthetically more along the lines to the other older buildings in the hamlet. Something that's, more fitting to a 19th, early 20th century building style. So anything that can be considered or implemented for both of those issues would satisfy some of my concerns.
Good, yes, I'll talk to the architect about the elevations, see what he could do, combinations of materials and colors on that.
That would be wonderful.
Yes, and the cemetery, same thing, we have no issues with screening it, whether it's with some kind of fencing or landscaping or something we can work out.
That would be very helpful, I think. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, anybody else? Well, I can't declare the hearing closed. It's not a hearing, but I think we're finished.
Thank you. so much.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Rockingham Mall, built the mall. There's a cemetery at the east entrance to the mall. It was Civil War era cemetery. And they did a decorative fence around it. To make it look nice, but that was an interesting commercial application.
I've been there.
Which mall?
Rotterdam, near it's Schenectady.
Oh,
Right.
Just that way.
That would be very wonderful. if Something along those lines could be implemented.
Okay, next item on the agenda is our deliberations for, public hearing 2023-12P. So our applicants have been patiently waiting back there. Does anybody have any comments they want to open up with? We do have a proposed resolution that we probably should look over in light of some of the comments around wetlands.
I guess I would like to comment that it was, how everything kind of came together, all the cooperation from all the agencies and comprehensive, response. It just really appreciated that effort.
Second that. So one of the changes might be, says, whereas a property has a, can you say small riverine, or is a riverine in itself small?
Riverines.
Just riverines are by definition are small?
Yeah.
The property has a riverine and does not require a townwide drainage easement. That's a fair statement? Or which does not? Shall we say that?
Yeah.
Has a riverine which does not. Where the property has a riverine which does not require a townwide drainage easement. The planning board finds that the downspout shown to be directed away from the leach field through underground piping to daylight near the center of the property is acceptable. Again, that just clarifies that. And actually, you said that was proposed or requested by the Department of Public Health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of something.
I just had clarification. It is a walkout basement.
But I would omit a reference to the barn in the whereas sections.
Okay.
And just when we go through the conditions, I've already sort of written out how I would word that
Okay.
to have the applicant coordinate with the building inspector as to whether an area variance is required from the zoning board of appeals. Because it sounds like there's a little bit of question as to whether or not it was maybe already 25 feet when it was built and has moved over time. And I think that. we
Okay,
should
so
have
you're
our
suggesting we just get rid of that whereas for the barn?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't
cover-
think a resolution should,
Okay,
I don't think we have enough information as a planning board to make a decision one way or the other. So-
okay, so
Agreed.
could you, so that will
for-
be a condition?
Yeah, so for 10. It says the applicant shall show on the plan the side setback distance to the northern lot line of the existing barn and shall show the correct gross area of the barn. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
The second sentence, I would change to say the applicant shall coordinate with the building inspector as to whether an area variance from the zoning board of appeals is required. Coordinate with the building inspector.
Building. Inspector.
As to whether. And then you can sort of get back on track.
As to whether
An area variance.
an area variant, whether to obtain. As to whether an area variance from the zoning board is required.
That's right. That's how I would do that.
So the applicant will show on the plan the side setback distance of the northern lot line of the existing barn and shall show the correct gross area of the barn. The applicant shall coordinate with the building inspector as to whether an area variance from the zoning board of appeals for a non-conforming setback is required.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then for the conditions we obviously already have a no effect letter. So number 8 wouldn't be required.
Okay. Darn, that changes all the numbering.
Sorry. And then is my understanding, but you should certainly discuss the planning board that number 9 about coordinating with DEC
Yeah,
about.
that's already done too, so we don't
Yes.
need 9 either.
And then obviously the 11 with the drainage easement as
Right.
well.
So then 10 becomes 8 and 11 becomes, 11 is gone. Well, we do have an 11 that, so the last one I would have would be a 9. And it would be the applicant shall show on the plans any stream location. Just any, the stream location, the riverine location, how's that? The applicant shall show on the plans the riverine. The applicant shall show the riverine location. On the plans. Okay. Think we're set? All right. So I'll read the resolution as we've written it, and then I will come back and say I make a proposal, or yeah,
See if the board has any changes. And then-
okay. And then I will, essentially make a motion to adopt it as I read it or as we amended it. So this is a proposal for resolution of the site plan for, 301 Keys Road. Applicant Bennertz, that can be stated better, but whereas the planning board of the town of Rush has examined application 2023-12P submitted by Emily and Nicholas Bennert, the applicant, for tax parcel 220.02-1-24.1 on Keys Road, Rush, New York, 14543, the property, requesting site plan approval for a single-family dwelling on the property. And whereas the planning board has examined the application, maps, and other materials filed with the application, including the environmental assessment form, and all having reviewed all current plans and reports, including comments and reports from town professional staff, the public, and other interested and involved agencies associated with the application, including Monroe County Planning and Development. And whereas a public hearing on the application was held on December 19, 2023, and notice was posted as required by law. And whereas all persons at the hearing desiring to speak on the matter were heard, all correspondence on the matter was read, and all comments and statements that were received during the public hearing and or at other duly held meetings of the planning board were considered by the planning board. And whereas the property has a riverine which does not require a townwide drainage easement, and whereas the planning board finds that the downspout shown to be directed away from the leach field through underground piping to daylight near the center of the property was recommended by the Monroe County Department of Public Health and is acceptable. And now therefore be it resolved, the planning board determines that this is a type 2 action exempt from seeker review pursuant to section 617.5 C11 of Title 6 of New York Code of Rules and Regulations concerning the construction of a single family residence, including provision of necessary utility connections. And it is further resolved that upon consideration by the planning board of the factors set forth in section 120-69B3 of the town zoning law, including the location and arrangement of buildings on the property, adequacy, type, and arrangement of trees, shrubs, and other landscaping constituting a buffer between this and adjoining lands, adequacy of separate disposal of stormwater and sanitary waste, and protection of adjacent properties, the planning board grants site plan approval. And it is further resolved that the site plan approval is granted subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall meet all requirements of the town engineer as indicated in the town engineer's letter dated December 11, 2023. The applicant shall meet all requirements of Monroe County Development Review Committee, DRC, review response dated December 19, 2023. The applicant shall obtain approval of Monroe County Department of Health and Town Highway Superintendent. The applicant shall obtain approval signatures of the town engineer and the Rush Planning Board Chairman last. No work is to commence until the applicant obtains a building permit from the town of Rush. The applicant must meet any other applicable town building and inspection requirements. This is by way of number 7. The applicant shall obtain all other necessary local, state, and federal permits and approvals required for the project. Number 8, the applicant shall show on the plan the side setback distance to the northern lot line of the existing barn and shall show the correct gross area of the barn. The applicant shall coordinate with the building inspector as to whether an area variance from the zoning board of appeals for a non-conforming setback is required. 9, the applicant shall show the riverine location on the plans. Any changes? We're good?
Need to mention anything about the trees,
Excuse me?
the trees by the barn. Did you want to,
What do you want to say?
um,
The applicant. That'd be number 10.
say, like just consideration for protection of
Always say should, the applicant should consider.
protection of existing mature trees just north of the existing barn. But in more detail than that.
I mean, it's a should condition, so,
Right.
you know, I
Right.
think it's just more of a reminder than a hard and fast rule.
It says we thought about it.
It's
good.
Okay, thank you.
We good? So then I will make a motion that we adopt this resolution as was just amended. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right,
Member Moy, Deputy Chairman Austin,
Aye.
Chairman Strack,
aye.
Member Corbin.
Aye.
Member Snell.
Okay, adopted. So you live in Rush now,
Hunter Falls.
Honey Falls? Well, then welcome to Rush.
Thank you very much for all your.
Okay, well, good job.
The dry spring.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Moving on to item number 6, old business. This is tabled application 2023 4P, which is the J. Crew Landscaping. Robert and I provided some draft letters with the intent of essentially getting the applicants to finish and so we can reach a decision, hopefully, on their application.
It's something that can be openly discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intention was the planning board was gonna review those letters as a group and determine whether or not to send those letters. You know, I would stay away from discussing specifics of the application because it hasn't been, you know,
It's not a public
not a
hearing.
public hearing on it. But the intention of the planning board to have the applications recalled and untabled, lifted from the table, I think is certainly a valid topic of conversation.
Okay, you've had a chance to read it, I hope,
Yep,
and anything that you prefer to change or want to comment on at this point? Is it appropriate that we adopt a resolution to, or can we just reach agreement?
I mean, yeah, it's not, I don't think this requires a resolution. If there's just disagreements and if you feel more comfortable doing so, then that's fine. But this isn't, you know, certainly a resolved, you know, you're not writing at the bottom resolved by the planning board, but it's up to the group, up to the planning board generally how they want to handle applications that were brought to the board and have been tabled for months at a time.
I would say this is the first, in my 2009.
I like what's been read or what you guys came up with. I just feel that we're giving them too much of a long time to come back again.
You said we should have done this sooner.
Yes.
So I did build in some time for them to respond from the point that they get this letter. So, I mean, so J. Crew Landscaping, we're saying we expect to see something by February 6th because I've already had, what, 9 months? And we're gonna essentially open the hearing again on February 27th. So that gives them some time to respond, which I think is rational. And then, so not to dump everything on the same month, the Genagon with the 2-family is essentially a month later, and they were several months behind J. Crew anyway. So they haven't been outstanding for nearly as long. But the idea is just to get them to respond if that's what they choose to do at this point.
The only thing I'd like to add is, can copies of this go to the building inspector and the code enforcement
Oh.
guy?
Sure,
Would they get copies?
that's a great idea.
Well, they should get copies of this so they can follow up with what we've decided to do.
Yep.
Right? That's a,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
right.
I think that's perfect.
Otherwise, they wouldn't know what we just did.
Great idea. I know in the back of my mind, I plan to do that anyway, but glad you brought it up.
I
Robert,
would just
you
ask if everyone's comfortable with
Yeah.
this procedure.
Yes.
everybody okay?
Yep.
Mac, you're there, everybody okay with the general idea of a follow-up letter as we're doing? And the
Yeah.
time that we've
Yeah.
how we stated it?
Yeah, I thought it was very appropriate.
Okay, so we did kind of go through the dates that things occurred on, what we're looking for, just as a reminder of the things they should know that we're expecting. And then essentially the statement that they have a date by which to respond to us, which was 3 weeks ahead of the public hearing at which we would, or the date of the meeting that we would open up a public hearing. So I don't know if we need to do anything more than say, yes, we agree. And at this point, would we send this out? Does it have to go hard copy, or since we have their email addresses, we can do it that way?
I would
as an
do both.
attachment?
I would do both.
Excuse me?
I would do both. I would send a hard copy and email as well.
An email attachment and a hard copy, snail mail. Okay. Well, if we're all in agreement with the intent and the wording, the dates. Yep. What else we need to say? Everybody agrees?
I agree.
Okay, yep, no objection. We will do that. So I'll make a few, really it's just changing the CCs. And I'll send this in a note to you, Sharon, saying, please send them out. Okay. Excellent. Okay, future meetings. So these are some topics that either we know are gonna come up or could come up. Canna Health, that's the adult use cannabis retail dispensary. That is the one that is just south next door to Creekside Inn. And it's one of the old buildings that takes up a lot of the lot. As it turns out, there's reason to believe they do have a shared driveway agreement with the property to the south, which I believe is being used as 5 apartments. I've heard it's as many as 5 apartments. So I've tried to make it clear to them that I think the planning board will expect to see a site plan that shows very specifically 10 by 20 parking spaces on that shared lot. And it needs to include not only what they think they need for their customer parking, but also what, since it's the shared parking lot, and if they want to use the parking next door is a shared lot, they will need to show what parking is also needed for the apartments. So the question will become, what is the number? 5 apartments, if they were new buildings, we would probably require 10 parking spaces. This is not a new building, however. And Indiana Health folks in their application have stated they could have as many as 20 people in their store at one time. So does that mean 20 car parking spaces or 10 cars parking spaces or some other number? So we need to see what they come back and say they need. Again, this is not a new construction, which has some firm numbers in the town code. But it's got to be substantial parking, and in my belief, we should require them to show not only the spaces, but accessibility of those spaces. So they can't be, parking spaces one behind another that there's no access for the first person in to get out until the second person comes in. So that all needs to be determined. I don't know if ADA rules apply for handicap parking at an old building like this, or it only has to do with new construction. So I'll be looking for our town attorney, town engineer to help us decide that. But after all, it is is stated to be somewhat of a health facility that's aimed at pain relief. So you would think you'd want handicap parking there if that ADA law applies. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what parking they say they need, including the apartments next door that they share the lot with, and what parking they can come up with that is usable on those 2 lots.
The special permit is for dispensary only.
Excuse me.
And the special permit request is for dispensary only.
Correct. It's not a use facility. Okay. It is for retail sales. It's dispensary.
Okay.
And so we have pretty much confirmed that they do require a special permit, because what they are looking for is adult use cannabis, which our special permit requirement does come into effect. The other interesting factor, which I'm gonna state here in public record, is that they may come back and say they're proposing for some amount of their parking to use so-called public parking. And the question becomes, what is that? It is not defined in the handbook, really. As it turns out, a lot of what is Creekside's parking lot is actually county park land. So we don't know what arrangements, if any, have been made between Creekside Inn and any previous owner of what is now county park representing the Lehigh Trail. So that's all to be determined if any of that Creekside lot might or may not be usable. And then you've got the whole area on Park Lane, I guess it's called, over by Montisanos, and if any of that could be considered public parking. But I think at present it is not considered that.
There's very no parking spots.
Well,
Spaces there though, right?
Yeah, but it's not really well defined. And the ownership over there is not clear to me.
is there any, as far as Park Lane, are there any no parking signs or parking spaces provided?
I'm not aware of anything specific, because I don't know what I don't even know who owns that whole Park Lane and that mall area between East End of the Road and Park Lane.
Seems to
If you-
show up as as
If you click on it on the GIS, no owner comes up. So
Right.
I don't know what it is. Is it public land? So I think the town board has a big need to get moving on defining what's public parking, if any, down
did
here
I-
in Hamlet.
if I read the response from the park group from Monroe County, that you cannot use, cannot park on parkland
If you're not using it.
if you're not using the
If
park.
you, that's what that note seemed to say, yes. So that would create a substantial problem in the hamlet already,
So, and then we've got public parking here.
potentially. It's not very handy to the other side of the creek, though. So I don't even know how the town, determines, is this lot public? Is the lot back here by the recreation area public? I think that all needs to be spelled out. And I think whatever's considered public parking ought to have a sign on it that says public parking. But
I picture, I believe that this, since it's a civic property, is public parking.
I would think.
But the Village of Scottsville, their town offices, they actually label that as public parking. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, Honey Falls is a good example too. They have that lot near the old mill,
The mill,
the stone
right.
mill, which would be used for anybody visiting the town offices there, but also it's widely used for anybody going to the businesses there. And similarly, Honey Falls has a substantial lot behind a Chinese restaurant there and those other businesses. So
the other thing that, as far as demand, parking demand or traffic demand for, I've been asked at times to go to a similar facility and do a count of either how many spaces are available at this cannabis dispensary area. So, and that's one thing that you could suggest that they would do to kind of baseline
others,
others.
what would their demand be?
Because I think 20 people in the, they're 20 people and it doesn't really tell us
No,
how many cars.
exactly. So we will certainly be able to open a public hearing in January for this. I think they've provided an application that we can't say we can't deal with, but that doesn't mean we're going to reach any kind of resolution. It could very well be tabled depending on all these conversations around parking. Okay, B is Todd M. Kavanaugh, 400 Jeffords Road, special permit for a two-family dwelling. That he also got that in time for January 23rd public hearing. He's showing a second septic system with that. This is an addition behind a garage that he already has a lot of already existing building behind the garage. He wants to add to that for a two-family second dwelling. But he is showing another septic system for that, which I presume might be needed. I kind of had agreement with the building inspector that we can leave the septic specifics to the building permit phase that John Lindbeck would require approval from the Monroe County Department of Health before issuing a building permit. So we might not have to include that, or the proposal is we do not include that. In the longer term, as we're modifying the residential district code as part of the code committee, I think it's appropriate to outright state that two-family dwellings, whether they're all new or a conversion of a single family to a two-family, should have a full site plan. That would be what I'd propose for that code committee. Item C, this is the tabled application 2023 8P, the Alexander 45 Woodruff Road. That's the one where the septic system proposed in the front yard was too close to the neighbor's well. The neighbor as well was not installed where their site plan at 35 Woodruff Road showed. It was shown, it was installed 30 some feet closer to the lot line. So the neighbor and this applicant actually reached an agreement where they would re-drill the well. I don't know if they re-drilled it. We have confirmation that it was re-drilled. I don't know the exact location, if it's where it was on the site plan or even in a more beneficial area to 45 Alexander 45 Woodruff Road. But interestingly enough, they have not come back. So it's been a couple of months now. So there must be something going on that they're still working out.
Well, so if memory serves correctly, if the well would have had to have been drilled where specified in the site plan, otherwise it would require a site plan amendment of this board. And even if it was built, or even if it was drilled according to plans, I think it still fell within that 100-foot
That's my understanding.
buffer. It would require the applicant of 45 would have to potentially reconfigure their septic design, which they came and said that they had opportunities available to them to maybe design it so that it was compliant, but again, that's up to them and their redesign.
Yep, I agree with what you said. I can make one more comment, and that was when I first heard that the well was re-drilled at 35 Woodruff Road. the part of the, at that time rumor also was that the 45 Woodruff Road applicant had agreement from the Department of Public Health that their septic system was acceptable. I communicated with Brett Gobe and he said, nope, he hadn't heard of it. So that also was a month or so ago at this time. But the original rumor that there was approval by the Department of Public Health is not true. Okay,
Just to go back to that, so did we make can we say now that wherever the well is located in the site plan, that's where it should be drilled?
Wherever the well location is on the approved site plan of 35 Woodruff is where the well should be located. If
What
it
about
is-
any
what
other,
about in general?
What do you mean in general?
any other site plan approval? I mean,
Yeah, when,
so are we saying that when someone comes in with us, they have a plan approved and they show a location of a well? That once that plan is approved, that's where the well has to go.
yeah, per the approved plans, correct. Any deviation from that plan would require a site plan amendment.
Okay.
I don't think that's ever been done. Unless everybody really has drilled their well where they said.
Well, sort of makes sense. Otherwise, why would you even have to show it?
And that's why it's important that, code enforcement, building inspection and this board work concurrently to ensure that what is approved on the plans is what's
Makes sense. to me.
submitted on the final site plans and what is approved for signature, and then what is built is approved on those final construction drawings.
Cause I drilled my well before for subdivision.
Mhm.
So I didn't, before site plan approval, so it was already existing.
Right, and in that event, in the subdivision application, you identify the wellhead and say, here it is, this is where it's located.
That's probably the best case, right? Because if you were not successful,
Right.
then it was your dollar, right?
Just, as far as I understand also that well, to me, isn't that deep. It's only around 65 feet. So it's, to me, that's even more of a reason why you would not want septic.
Closer.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay, no, good comment. Yeah, I'm not aware of in the number of years I've been on the planning board of anybody ever coming back for a new site plan because of a movement of a well. So means maybe they always were successful or they just didn't come back. I added an item D, and Gene can help with this one, but there is this 7262 West Henrietta Road, which is what's commonly called the dorsal property. That is the one that's catty cornered across the 251 Route 15 intersection from Puff Trucks. So directly, in the opposite corner. It is zoned commercial in the front and the back is residential. But there is a proposal for 100,000 square foot cannabis growing facility there, a processing facility. With I've heard secondhand that it's 50,000 square foot growing area. And it could potentially have 30 to 40 employees. And I believe a presentation was made to the town board last week that I did not see. Is that correct, Gene?
Correct. And what was also revealed to us at that presentation, it's not just growing, but they may be processing going on.
I
in
would
there
presume drying and grinding type of things.
And creating oils.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And some other types of processing, so that changes from just growing,
Just-
which
just-
would be
just from agriculture.
agriculture into
Commercial.
something else.
So this is all enclosed.
Yes,
So the 100,000 square feet is small Wegmans.
Yes.
You can't do it in residential.
Well,
area.
I'll tell you the Cantel, which is just across the town line intersection, that's I think that's 110,000 square feet. Oh, it's that size building. Yeah, it's big. It's big for what, anything else we have in Rock. So historically, the issue with that particular lot has been the road. That it would have to have a road, probably can't come off of 15. Even though that's what the address is what's in the road.
Right.
Probably has to come off
Well,
of 51.
Well, DOT bought the frontage without access. So there's a 1 foot strip of without access right away.
Oh, so it can't be on 15.
Well,
They can apply, and we did the traffic study for Dorshel,
Oh, okay.
stating the case that it could be a break-in access. It's a process you go through with DOT
Okay.
to obtain a break-in access for that.
I could visualize an exit to the north there. It'd be hard to imagine any other intersection, any other driveway coming out.
I always visualized a jug handle coming off of southbound, going onto, changing the direction of that frontage road and then bringing it back over to a driveway through the park and ride. But,
Oh.
anyway.
You're way advanced to me. I can't, my head can't even get around that.
Anyway, but there, for that was,
Can of worms.
but that was, it could be done, but at the time, the DOT was only thinking about a right in, right out. It would not be fully directional. That was brought up the other issue of the driveway off of 251, because the sight distance is so poor coming up that hill. And if I recall, the request at the time from either planning board, town board, was that try to find a driveway location on the other side of the property to the east, coming up around that property and access from the back. But so it is an issue as far as sight distance. So, how many employees was it? 100?
30 to 40 is what
30
I
to
heard
40.
indirectly.
I don't know what traffic impact that would be, but those are the issues that were with the Dorshel property. It would probably behoove us to get the traffic study that was done for Dorshel, just to have an idea of what the issues were.
Well, the good news and bad news is they're both state roads. So the New York DOT will have a big impact.
Mhm.
Okay,
So we'll get the zoning, I think.
Yeah, it's one residential.
You have that little carve out that's commercial, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest is residential, and what is allowed on either one of those in terms of agriculture or manufacturing.
yes, I don't know that processing aspect of that is something that's allowed in commercial. A commercial right now says retail and service business. It doesn't say manufacturing. So it'll be interesting.
And I don't know what processed water and all that stuff entails either.
Yeah, well, it would have to be septic, right? Unless they're the ones who are gonna fund septic coming down, or, pipes coming down from Henrietta. Yeah, so the other comment I want to make is, we always need to be aware that once a road goes in and there's a facility back there somewhere, that could enable other commercial businesses to be put there. All right, typically when any business has a proposal, they show what looks nice and is to their advantage. It doesn't mean that there couldn't be additions in the future. If it's a commercial property, it could be subdivided or whatever.
Yeah.
Just need to always be aware of that. Okay. That's all I had. I will say that Carl and I have discussed this. I will not be able to attend the March 26th planning board meeting. So I would find it unlikely that we will not have something then. I don't think we'll be able to cancel, but I'll work with Carl on preparing for that. Any other comments? So you folks, while you're
I'd
at,
like to bring some, it's piddly poo stuff, but
Yep.
the last 3 site plans, I think it keeps coming up that it doesn't have number of bedrooms in the house.
Good
But
point.
yet in our minimum requirements, it doesn't say you have to do that.
Okay.
So is that something that we think you have to have, and should it be in the minimum requirements? Because nobody seems to be doing it.
yeah, that's a good point. I think we should.
I know it's piddly,
It's,
but it doesn't say you have to define it.
it's kind of assumed that it's a part of the septic planning, but it does make sense to just state it.
I think that, yeah, I think the comment is, part of the DOH approval requires to identify how many bedrooms, what the design is for the septic system. And probably the comment then is that should be repeated
Yeah, for they didn't know,
on the
but
site
not,
plan.
not for us.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And it's happened 3 times that I know of that they don't show it. And that if they read this, it doesn't tell them they have to do it. That's all.
In,
It's just a
in one case, for
really
the-
cool thing.
for Woodruff Road, it was, the plan, here's a detail for a 3 or 4, for the 3 or 4 bedroom.
Right, right.
So it's,
So
That's okay, as long as they have a 4-bedroom.
septic tank. Anyways, that's just something I wanna
that's a good.
complain about. Not complain, but bring up.
So I think that's something within our capabilities to add. Okay, anything else? What'd you think, Stephen? What you expected?
Pretty much
You've been to some before for your own house?
on the other side of the table.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Carried.
can I ask you? The sign thing is.
You can
bugging me.
ask in it.
The sign thing's about.
Yep.
Isn't one that says setback front, isn't that the setback where the building front back is, it's the same
Maybe they
word.
found it if I passed.
Typically setback would be from something. at the-
Against my numbers.
Right.
What's it do?
So-
Went off or?
But if you look at the distance of 15 feet.
I didn't
it can't
notice
be the
that.
center line.
No, but I thought it was beyond this front